It's a motivational speech entitled Building Your Thinking Power, Mental Flexibility. Rebecca Kimbel.
Mental flexibility is an attitude. A lot of you might be surprised to find that out. But attitude can make or break anything. It can be the reason for your success or your failure in any endeavor, especially in human relationships. The number one thing that is so important in mental flexibility is that one should come into the situation in a mood of acceptance. Acceptance. Accept whatever is in front of you. I'm not saying agree with it, I'm saying accept it. Be realistic and see what's in front of you. Emotionally, intellectually, and literally. You must be aware. Awareness. This is very important. If you come into a situation and you've already made up your mind how it's going to be, and you're not listening to anybody in the audience, you will create an automatic disconnect. Why? Because the minute you start getting pushy, it is human nature for people to block it or to push back. If you want to reach your audience, your students, the people you want to teach, you must first make them comfortable. Be open to accepting who they are. And let them feel that and know that. Listen to them. Not just audio listening, emotional listening. Get a feeling for the atmosphere and the emotion they bring in. Never forget, actions speak louder than words. You must communicate if you're going to be a leader. Without communication, there is no leadership. Remember this, insecure people need, or imagine they need, for you to think just like they do. Belong to the same group they belong to. Have the same hairdo they have, wear the same clothes, maybe even the same shoes, because they're insecure if they can't fit. We really don't want to all fit. We want everybody to fit into being themselves. So the objective is to accept them the way they are and make them comfortable. Make them feel comfortable by your being relaxed and comfortable, which comes right back to the word attitude. Have a warm, friendly, receptive attitude and make people feel secure. I'm going to tell you a little story that is reality. It did really happen. I used to be heavily involved in horsemanship and live in Hereford cattle country in the Rocky Mountains. And there were two events that would apply very much to attitude tonight that I've decided to share with you. They happened a few years apart, but they're very similar. We were on a very rugged mountain terrain when a horse kicked another horse, and that horse went over the edge. The horse went over the edge with a rider. Went only part way down and got stuck. The guy that was taking the pack train in was a new horseman. He didn't grow up in that country and he didn't grow up with those horses, or any horses. But he felt he could handle anything. So he grabbed his bullwhip, went down the mountain as far as he could go and started beating the horse that had fallen to make it get up. It scrambled so much to avoid the blows that the guy that was pinned beneath the cliff and the horse was in serious danger. That was one of the most chilling experiences I ever had. My shoulders are getting goosebumps remembering. The horse and the man came up wounded, but they both lived. A few years later, in another part of the country, this time the Marble Mountains, the terrain along the side of the trail was overly wet with rain and had gotten very heavy. And the horse the guy was riding off, he pulled it off over to the side, and suddenly that whole chunk just gave way. And they went part down the mountain. And the guy slipped underneath the horse and was pinned against the mountain, and the horse is like with two legs bent this way and a leg hanging over to keep from going over the cliff below. The packer grew up in the mountains. He grabbed a rope and he started down after him on foot. And he told the guy's head, you know, hook this rope to the mule. Don't do anything till I say. He went down and he started talking to the horse. And he soothed the horse so the horse quit scrambling. And he told the horse everything was going to be okay. While he did this, he reached underneath the horse. He got the stirrup, you know, the guy's foot out of the stirrups so that he was going to be free when the horse stood up. And he talked to the horse, gradually got the horse up on 3 feet, and the horse is standing on 3 legs, trembling on the side of the cliff. And then he reaches around and he asks his buddy if he's okay, and he says, I think I am. He says, try to stand up, be careful, I'll help hold you, try to stand up. The guy stood up. He says, do you think you can stand? He said, yeah, but I don't know if I can walk. He said, can you stand if they pull you up? And he said, yeah. So he put the rope on him. He told the guys to pull him up. And they carefully pulled him to the top. He had some injuries, but he was okay. The guys threw the rope back down. He put it on the horse, calmed the horse, and had them pull the horse up. And had himself pulled up last. Attitude. Attitude. This guy, under the worst circumstances, had the nicest attitude. And he had what I call a real liability with us on that pack trip. There was a woman with us that started screaming and crying and never shut up until it was over with. She wasn't helping. But that impressed me extremely deeply. Attitude in every living relationship with animals, people, everything you're going to do is 99% of the job. Mental flexibility requires that you look at the circumstances, evaluate the circumstances, and have the right attitude to what? To obtain the objective you're seeking. Your attitude should be the groundwork to obtain the objective you're seeking. And if it isn't that kind of an attitude, you're causing your own problem. The next is very keen observation. Observation is evaluating the emotional picture, the intellectual picture, as well as the outside environmental picture that's going on and what's going on literally in front of your eyes. Be aware. Be aware. Now, the crazy thing about observation is it isn't always as you think it is. I'm going to share a couple of little stories with you about observation. When my little nephew was 7 years old, he came to Humboldt County with his mom, my sister. And we put my kids and her kids in school. Well, little Seth was in school no more than 2 days. Then my sister got called into the school because they told her son was retarded. So she said, go with me, I can't believe this. So I went to give her moral support. And the counselor carefully explained that she had put Seth through all those tests and he didn't know anything. And Irene said, well, what kind of test did you put him through? And so they told her. And after it got through, she started to laugh. And they said, what's so funny? She said, we've been living in Nicaragua all of his life. If you will tell him anything relating to Nicaragua, I'm sure he will pass all the tests. But the test was based 100% on this environment of this country. Of course he failed. So after about 3 weeks or less, he was a B.D.M student. Within a month, he was an A student. Before that, he was retarded. So you need to consider who you're dealing with. And another one that you'll probably remember that really happened in history many years ago, there were some English scientists and philosophers, very highly educated men, that decided to go into northern Alaska and take a look at those primitive, ignorant people up there and study them. Well, they went up there, and the Eskimos took them everywhere, and they got in a lot of trouble up there. But the Eskimos saved their lives several times. And before they got through, they realized that in their environment, it was the educated man that was the ignorant one, because he had no comprehension of that particular problem in that particular environment. And they came home with a complete different concept of what ignorance is. Keep in mind that our educational system trains us to take jobs in our world, in our environment, and to understand our history and our country. To assume that everybody in the world isn't going to pass our test in our country, try to imagine how you would do in their country. Observation. That's not easy to see, but you need to realize there's a reason for these blocks. And if you hunt for them, you will find them. Another little story on observation that I shall never forget in my life. We got a homestead when I was a kid. 160 acres, squatters' rights, had nothing on it. It was by the Deep Creek Range Mountains, which were snow-capped year-round. Huge valleys between Wendover and Delta. Deep Creek Range Mountains ran right down the Utah-Nevada line. We were on the Utah side. Well, I didn't know how we were going to get a well on that property. We didn't have much money. We didn't have much of anything, but it was ours. And that was the world. So my mom sits there and she looks at the mountains for a long time. She studies the mountains, and she studies the way the water comes down the mountain on the alluvial fan and where the creeks are. And she walks over this 160 acres of land, and she finds a couple of places where there was a place that dropped down from underground water. And so she came back up and she says, "Okay, kids," to my brothers, "we're going to dig a well." Now, what did we have for a well digging outfit? We had a post hole auger and some pipe we could add to the handle. So Mom told us, okay, the water should be about here. So we dug and put the pipes on the handle and dug, and we hit water at 18 feet. We had a pitcher pump. We had to prime it every time we used it. And I said, "Mama, how in the world did you figure that out?" And she said, "Honey, water runs downhill." Now, that might seem obvious, but it's only obvious when your mind is in the channel where the question is. The answer is usually found within the question, in a related form. If you don't comprehend any nature things or geography things or geological things, it's a lot harder. If you grow up in country that is wild and rough, you see it very, very differently. The next one on our list is to be a better listener. This is a human relations problem or art, either way. Okay? Let's talk about friends. If you listen closely, you can figure out what type of friends you have. Do people love you dearly because you are always giving things to people so that you can be a really good person, give to your society, and they love you dearly until you run out? Are you having friends that love you as long as you will take over some of their responsibilities? Remember, if somebody is befriending you because they need something, as soon as you fulfill their need, they will leave. Because that too is human nature. Remember too that if you have a friend that says, please, listen to me, I have this problem, make a decision, help me, tell me what to do. Don't bite that. Don't bite that, because the minute you tell them what to do, no matter whether they follow your suggestion or not, it's going to be your fault when it goes wrong. And this friend is really a person who is afraid to accept the responsibility of the decisions in their own life. They're not necessarily doing it deliberately, but maybe it's a habit. But the point is that if you really want to help them, give them suggestions about falling back on themselves, what they can do to help themselves. Because if you do it for them, they're more afraid all the time to be responsible for their decisions. And these people usually have that happen to them, this state of mind, while they were growing up as kids. So be benevolent and keep that in mind. Don't judge the problem, understand the problem. Judgment doesn't help anybody, it alienates people. Understanding brings comprehensions of closeness and caring and kindness. And about the listening thing, how about flattery? You know, it's one thing somebody comes up and says, boy, your suit really looks nice on you, or I like that hat. But when they start buttering you up to the point that you feel like they're going to slide you through something big, they are. So in that moment of being so special, ask yourself before you lose your balance whether or not that moment of attention, or 2 or 3 moments of it, is really worth the price. Friends, real friends, tell you what you don't want to hear. Real friends will warn you when you're about ready to step in it. And they will not hate you, criticize you, or turn their back on you if you decide to step in it anyway. But because they're your friend, they want you to know. Honesty in friendships are the only friendships that are true friendships and that really last. Because if you can't rely on somebody and they're not dependable, they're not really your friend. You're kidding yourself. It's just another social game. You can tell an awful lot about people if you watch them and pay attention to what their priorities are. That will tell you probably more than most of them want you to know. If you do not understand and learn how to read people, you will not be a good community leader, because you're going to meet a lot of people in Toastmasters, in your jobs, in life. These leadership skills are important. Don't judge people, accept them exactly the way they are, and deal with them in a manner that is going to be beneficial for all concerned, which includes not stepping in it when you're flattered. So, being a better listener is vital. Now we look into skilled thinking or cognitive thinking. Everyone has had moments someplace in their life where something happened and it was a cognitive moment. And you remember that moment where all of a sudden the light went on and you had a comprehension that just came to you. These are important moments. These are points of thinking skills that we all have, but sometimes we don't nurture them because we don't think about the nature of how it came about. When I was a little girl, I was 4.5 years old. My mom was heavy pregnant with my little sister. We were running along the road, hiding behind bushes, because the police were coming, and we were hiding from the police. They were having a big raid in Utah. They were trying to pick up a bunch of polygamists that had done all these things, and we were hiding because that was us. So we were taught that everybody outside of our cult was evil and wicked. The whole world was wicked, and we were afraid of them. We were afraid of the outside world. They were all the devil's people. And especially Catholics. I don't know why. But my mom said to me, now try to keep up. She said, we're going to have to go up here and knock on this lady's door. I know her. She's a Catholic. So don't you say a word. So I'm thinking, we're going to go into the devil's house himself. And I'm like so scared I can hardly walk. We go to the lady's door, Mom knocks, and the lady answers, and I'm hiding behind my mom's skirts. And my mom pushes me. I can still feel her hands on my back, pushing me through this lady's door because I'm like, I want to go. And I can't talk. I'm too scared. We get into her house, and I'm hiding behind my mom's skirts. And Mom talks to her. We have the police going by. And that house was something I had never seen anything like. It was clean everywhere. The floors were clean, the furniture was clean. It looked like a museum to me, but I'd never seen a museum. I just thought it was the most beautiful thing I ever saw. It was so beautiful, I was getting caught up in the beauty of the house. The furniture matched. It was unbelievable. There were beautiful things hanging on the wall. And over on one side there was a curio cabinet. And in the top of that curio cabinet were two little Hummel dolls. Little Swiss boy, little Swiss girl that were cream colored. Heavy little Hummel dolls. My eyes came to rest on them and I was glued. And the woman said, will you let your little girl talk to me? And Mom got embarrassed. And so she said, Rebecca, Rebecca. She shook me. She's talked to the lady. And I'm like, I can't talk. I just freeze up. And then something else happened that was weird. I could feel this woman's love. It was the most peaceful feeling I'd ever felt. Nothing in her house, the emotion in it, nothing was as serene and peaceful and beautiful as this woman's emotional state. I could feel it. And I could feel this feeling coming to me of great acceptance. But I still couldn't talk. I was still too afraid. So the woman said, if I give your daughter something, will you allow her to keep it? And Mother said, no, don't give her anything. She said, I didn't say that. I'm asking you, if I give your daughter something, will you promise me you will let her keep it? Now she must have known what the cult was like, because we don't need to keep stuff. But she made Mother promise. And she reached up, she took those little Hummel dolls down, she put them in my hand. And she said, and put her hand around mine, and she said, you take good care of them, and I want you to remember forever and ever the day you came to my house, and how wonderful it was to have you here. And every time you look at them, I want you to think of that in this day. Well, Mom let me keep them, but I had to hide them in a can in the yard and bury them because it was against the rules. Years later, when my children were teenagers, my daughter Eileen said to me, Mom, why do you keep those Hummel dolls? We knocked them down and broke them a couple times. You glued the boy back together and you put it back on the shelf. And she said, and it's the only figurine that's glued together and back on the shelf. Why do you keep those Hummel dolls? So I told her that story. Because in that day, that experience, I learned something very important, a cognitive moment. I was 4.5. I knew my mother had lied to me. There are good people in the world. I knew it. So after my kids grew up, still having those Hummel dolls, I thought, well, I wonder if that can work twice. I got in the car and I drove to Colorado City, Arizona. And I had a Utah plate car, and I figured, okay, if I dressed the part, I could probably get in. And I knew exactly what to do, so I went to the grocery store and asked directions, but I gave my pedigree sheet, who my father was, how many wives he had, who the family was, and who I was looking for. And they said, oh, all right, over the bridge, 2nd Street, da-da-da-da, and directed me my half-sister, Millie's. Well, I had decided to go there kind of last minute, and the only thing that I had in the car with me is that my own kids had gone to Duck-Donald's, had those little Duck-Donald's, my kids call it, McDonald's toys. And so I stuck a few of them in my pocket. When I got to my half-sister's house, all the children ran away and hid because I was an outsider. They'd never seen me. I had to be the devil. Probably was, but they didn't know. So they hid, but one child hid underneath the sofa. And after a little while, I did the same thing to her that woman did to me when she gave me the Swiss dolls. That was a long time ago. I was walking down the street in Salt Lake City not very long ago, and I heard a woman call, "Wait, wait." And I turned around and didn't see anybody I knew. So she said, "Wait, wait," and I looked again. Here's a woman with a little kid hanging on her skirt and a baby in her arms. And I said, "Are you speaking to me?" And she said, "Yes." So I waited, and she caught up to me. She said, "You don't know me, but I'm your niece," and she tells me about the toys from McDonald's and how she grew up knowing that I was a daughter of perdition. I had left the faith, that I was going to hell, and I was really, really, really bad. And she could never forget that day in her life because she knew better the moment that I held her hand. She could feel it. So she got a friend who had a computer, and she started following me on the computer. And then she started crying, and she said, "You changed my life." So we both stood there on the streets of Salt Lake City and cried because it was a cognitive moment. We all have those. These things are all truths in problem solving. We cannot solve problems if we aren't even opening to understanding what the problems are. Problem solving is the last one. And it's very important that you understand concepts. For example, when the space shuttle was out there, they said, "Houston, we've got a problem." They literally had to create and make a round cylinder out of whatever they could find to make it out of and put it in a square hole to get back to planet Earth. That was problem solving with what they had to deal with, not because they could go to the store and get it. Keep in mind this. Look at Hitler. What did he do? Look at Mahatma Gandhi. What did he do? Who really was the powerful man? Attitude. And I can't give you any deeper, more powerful ideals to study than Hitler and Mahatma Gandhi because of the extreme opposites. With Hitler, when he didn't have any more people to kill and he was in prison, then he wanted to kill himself because the humanity in him wasn't in him anymore at all. Mahatma Gandhi changed a nation. He never fired a shot. And he kept saying, underneath it all, we're the same. And he did it on that. So, truth. Truth. Trusting in your own basic truth. Be true to yourself. Without you, you have nothing. How can you expect others to be true to themselves if you won't be true to yourself? And remember that all of us, all human beings, are more alike than we are different. We have the same basic human needs. We all need love, acceptance, safety, caring, and education for our children. All of us need these. So, ladies and gentlemen, understand these needs with the right attitude and remember these things, and I promise you, your leadership skills will soar. Thank you very much.